folks, another video from the Angry Photographer. I wanted to show you an extremely neat device. It's the Shutter Boss. It's the second version. Now this one has a DC2 connector for connecting like to the D5000 series, the D750, or the D7100, but they do make a 10-pin connector version for like the Nikon D810 or the Nikon D700. They actually make it also for Canon models. Now it takes two AAA batteries back here, and you have multiple release modes. Now none of the Canons or Nikons have the capability of doing what this does. Now you can use it without the batteries. Of course the display will be blank, just as a remote release, as you heard right there. Especially useful for macro work. Now they do make a much smaller version of this that Nikon sells, that I told you about in a prior video. But all that is a release. So what does this one have that the other one does not have? Well, you actually can't see it. Let me actually, there you go, you can see the LCD illumination there. What we have are, what none of your Nikon cameras have, are self mode for a release, kind of like a wake-up call for the camera to turn on. So we can set, I want it to release 5 seconds from now. You hear an audible beep. Now to do this, you'll actually have to stick your camera in manual mode and set your shutter on bulb. Obviously, it's not going to release in pussy mode or shutter priority or aperture priority. So now I have, as you can see, the self mode set to 5 seconds. So it's going to wait 5 seconds. You can set this up to 99 hours from now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to long, meaning how long do I want the exposure to be? Oh, let's say I want the exposure to be 4 seconds long, so 4-second exposure. Now here's the third part. This is great for making time-lapse videos, which I absolutely enjoy. You can choose the interval between shots. Say you have your camera set up in your car, you're driving down the road at night, you can set the interval so it takes a shot at X number of seconds every 10 seconds, or if you want to point it up at the clouds and shoot the clouds as they pour past, you might have an interval of, say, every 10 minutes of whatever the appropriate exposure is. And lastly, we would have the number of shots up to 399 shots. But right now, let's go back to what we have. We have a 5-second delay, settable up to 99 hours, I believe. I've never gone anywhere close to that far, however. I mean, I can't imagine leaving my camera alone for 99 hours unless it's inside the house pointing at the window and I'm using it as a peeping Tom device. So the duration of the exposure, this is useful for a time-lapse video, so you can actually stitch your shots together in one of your Macintosh or Windows applications. Interval of shots and then the number of shots. So let's hit the start-stop button here. Okay, it's counting down. Now it's counting down the exposure. Obviously that's an overexposure. I'm not shooting any time-lapse shots. Did I get it? Yeah, I exposed everything as white there. But you get the point, and it's an incredibly handy device. So right down here we have, in bulb mode, I could use this as, I'll let go right there, or I can use it in aperture mode or shutter mode or program mode, not for long exposures or intervals or number of shots. I can't use it there. I can only use it in manual mode on bulb, but I can use it as a standard release. Okay, in program, shutter, or aperture priority. Let me press down half the way for focusing. You might not have seen the lens focus up front, but I pressed it down exactly like the shutter button on the camera. These are $49, or slightly more expensive for the 10-pin models for the Nikon D800 series or the Nikon D700. I don't know the price for the Canon models, but anyway, so here we go here. Might be able to see the lens focusing. Here you go, see, pressing halfway, just like on your camera. There's nothing to focus at there. There we go. So, handy little device. Like I said, you can use it as a shutter release without the 2 AAA batteries that are inside it, but if you want to use the duration, the long exposures, which, as I said, this device can do, it doesn't matter what Nikon camera you have, you can do some amazing long time exposure shots, like macro time exposure shots that your camera can't do. Okay, now you can use the small release Let's see, I forget the model number, the MC2, which I've got a couple of, which actually only holds it down. You're not allowed to count it. It doesn't let you count anything. You actually hold it down. You either look at your wristwatch, but I mean, this will actually count for you. So incredibly handy there for a longer time exposures, because you can set it for whatever you want, go back and look at what it is and adjust it here instead of actually guessing on the other release where it is the shutters are held open as long as you have the button locked in. But that isn't exactly precise, obviously so. And like I said, for time-lapse movies of like, it's countless thousands of things that I love time-lapse movies where you can stitch all your shots together. And you can take up to 399 shots and then stitch those together as a small film of time exposures, like the clouds rolling by really quickly, or like a flower that you know is about to bloom. You could set up your tripod on the window. You know the flower is going to bloom at X number of time every day. You would say, well, I'm going to set my interval for every 2 minutes, which sounds about appropriate for a blooming flower. And then the exposure length is, exposure time is whatever the camera decides, so I'm going to let it be at the current exposure. Actually, I'd say the current exposure, like, well, it depends on what the ambient light is, what the light on the window is. You'd set that manually. Say 1/200th of a second at f11 or whatever the proper exposure is, and then you can shoot the number of shots. Say 50 shots at an interval of every minute or 2 minutes, and then stitch those together, and you can get the blooming flower quickly opening up out of, say, 50 or 100 shots. It's really easy to do in iMovie, which is one of the great things about Macs. Even if you hate Macs, you have to admit, even people that hate Macs admit that iMovie and a lot of the video and photography editing programs are divinely simplex in a Mac, but whatever you've got, it'll work. So this is it, and it's an awesome device for 50 bucks. It's a Shutter Boss. This is the second version. Now this one is for the D7100 or the D750 or the DF, but they make this for the D800 or the D700. And they make them for the Canon, and for 50 bucks, this extends the capabilities of your Nikon or your Canon camera drastically so. So take a look at it, and thanks for letting me show it to you, because I think it's an awesome device, and I'll catch you later, okay? Bye.